A tēnā rawa mai anō ai rā e pā e tō mātai matua nui te rangi. He whakaaro nui anō noho ki a tātou mātou ki te ao ki te pō. E no reira nā rā e a hau hoki mai ai, hoki tonu mai anō ai ki roto ki ngā kōrera Tahumaakaakanuimatua ki roto ki ngā Whakataunga Kereeme. I te kātoa ngā kōrera i roto tēnei pō tonu ko ngā Whakataunga Kereeme te katoa. No reira i te nui o aua kōrero, me tā ngā roia e titiro noa atu ana ke hoki roto i ngā tūāhuatanga katoa kua tino. Ana, ia e tahi, nā kua pā mai. Ana, ia e tahi kua ahua māharahara atu anoa i e mātau e pā. Ana, ia e tahi e noho taumaha kia mātau hoi anō. Rā no e tahi karakau. I te tino whakauaua mai ki roto kia mātau, te noho mai kia mātau, te tau mai ki roto kia mātau. Hoi anō e whai atu nei anō rā iau kia mātau i roto tēnei wā o te pō e pā. I tōhu kahamana ki atu i a tātou mātau, pita atu ki roto ki ngā whānau, ki ngā tamariki, ki ngā mokopuna o roto tonu anō i a mātau putanoa, ahakua rā kai whērahu ki rātau i roto tēnei wā, mehe mea kai te kāinga, mehe mea kai wāhiki atu, aha nei, nā kotou manaakitanga tonu, ohu katoa tonu anō, kia tino u atu anō ai ki roto kia rātau, kia tino tau atu anō ai rātau, kia koa anō ai rātau, ki roto anō ki ngā whānau katoa anō, ki tēnā, o mātou whānau, ahakua rā kaiwhea hoki rātau. Te koa tonu, te mahana, i roto i nei pō tonu, mātau rawa e pā. Hoi anō, tā ngā kōrero e kai ana te mātau, e mātau i roto WhakataungaKereeme.WairarapaTararua i ngā pō. Kai ana, he kai tonu anō te mātau no reira. Waimaria hoki tērā. Me korea ke hoki tērā kia mātau i roto ia e tahi o ngā tūāhuatanga. Kia aunana, te mea tonuke. Ko koe ia hoki kai roto tonu anō ia mātau i ngā wā katoa. Kai roto katoa. Ia mātau i ngā wā katoa, i te ao, i te pō. Noho rawa mai rā kōkue ki a tātou mātau i ngā wā katoa. Tino mai kōkue ki a tātou mātau, ki roto ki a tātou mātau i ngā wā katoa. Hai aha, hai kaha. Hai koroutu, e rā tūāhuatanga katoa. Inara, i roto ia e tahi wā nā mātau āhua hea nei. Harai te mea ngoi kore haere nei. Te mea ka āhua ngenge haere nei, āhua pau atu te kaha i roto ia e tahi wā kia mātau. Anana. I te mea ana hoki kei reira tonu anō koe kai a mātau. Me kore ake hoki tērā. Tai tonu atu anō rā i a mātau i ou kaha, i ou i ngā mea katoa ka tino mai anō ai ki roto tonu anō ki a koe i roto i ngā wā katoa ki a mātau e pā. Ai tō mātau matua nui te rangi. I te ingoa korautu rawa a te weoiti. Ai pā. Mene, ka piti hono ka tātai, hono ko rātau mā tērā rātau. Ngā mea tonu hoki, waiho iho anō ai, i ngā taonga tuku iho. Tai tonu anō ai rā, ia mātau, i e nei rā. Koutou rā e ngā mate. Nā rira haere, whakawihi atu. Haere whakawihi atu ki te wāhi e tika ana ki a koutou. Haere waiho mea no ai i ngā taonga e tau ana ki a mātau. A koia i nā ngā tūāhuatanga kua hiaroa ke mai nei. E ki te ake atu ana e mātau. Ngā taonga tuku iho ka waiho iho mai nā. Tautonu ai, tautonu ai, tautonu ai ki a mātau. E no reira nā ngā mihi, ngā whakatau ki, ngā whakatau ki, ngā whakatau ki. A tēnā rā haere, haere, haere whakauti atu, whakauti atu, whakauti atu, ki te pō nui, ki te pō roa, ki te pō tangotango, ki te pō oti atu ki a koutou. Haere, haere, hō atu. Ka piti hono ka tātai hono. Ko tātou mātanu anō tēnei tātou te kānohi ora ki a tātou mā kua. Kai te mihi atu, te āhuane ka ahia ke roa noa ahau e ngaro ana i te tirohanga kanohi i ngā kōrero, i ngā tiu āhuatanga e hātiu anani. Ngā mea katoa e haere ana nei roto i ngā wiki. Mea hau e titiro no atu ana ki ngā tūāhuatanga ki a wai, ngā tūāhuatanga ki te mea, hahanei, hahanei, hahanei. Hoi anō, te mea nui ko hoki tonu ake mai anō ai, ki oto ki ngā kōrera, Tahumaakaakanuimatua, me te nui o aiwa kōrera, te nui tonu o aiwa kōrera. Me tō mātau taiwhangātu, tonu, kia kahungunu mā, kia rangitā nema, ia rātau e rara, kahungunu rangitā nema, kia rātau i o rātau nā i te uri Māori, a kahungunu me te hapu Māori, te hapu Māori o roto, ia rangitāne nui, ia rangi, ia rātau. Hei aha kia tīmataria mai ngā kōrero te tūmanako nui, ka re tino roa e rā, ka re takaroa tonu mai e rā kōrero kia tīmataria. E no reira nā ahau, ka re pēr nui ake ngā kōrero, te mea nui kia whakamihi atu tātou. Kia whakamihi atu tātou. Anana i a koutou nā. Whakamihi atu tō koutou haramai, tō koutou whakahuihui mai, tō koutou karamui mai ngā kōrero. O Tahumaakaakanuimatua ki ngā Kereeme, ki ngā Whakataunga Kereeme. O roto i nei wā e haere tonu ana. I nei wā e tau whangāti tonu ana. I nei wā e kōrero e whiriwhiri tonu ana i roto i a mātau ngā kai Kereeme, ngā kai Whakataunga Kereeme, e whaiwhai haere nei ki whakataunga i ngā Kereeme ki roto WhakataungaKereeme.WairarapaTararua o te matau a māmi. No reira nau mai haere, piki, kake, haramai haere, haramai haere, haramai haere, haramai nāu. Kahuri. Kia ora, everyone. Yes. Been pretty busy, and so, it's starting to feel like a long time between kōrero, and but mind you, we're getting a lot of work done, a lot of things out of the way, a lot of talking getting done. And also a lot of work getting done and a lot of production happening. very much in the throes of settlement, and so much happening there. Lots of talks. We've got big talks with our lawyers coming up soon, actually, and they should be exciting. I can't wait. I haven't had the update yet on where we're at, but I'm still waiting for that, and I know it'll come this week. And then we organised to meet up with our lawyers. Very, very onto it lawyers. I'm very thankful. I thank the Lord we have the lawyers that we have, because they're right on target with everything that let's put it this way, a lot of the things we've been focused on and that we couldn't do much about. I'm not going to share a lot of the kōrero about what we're up to, because I can't do that. A lot of our kōrero about what we're up to at the moment is quite, it's very confidential, and it's still a work in progress, but nonetheless, it's kōrero that is hugely significant to everything that's happening between now and very much the years ahead. Also plans around settlements, etc. Our plans also to settle in the north. Yes, if that's big news to you, then I bring that news to you right now. We were asked about settlement in the north, and would we be joining and being part of the settlements in the north. But we haven't fixed on those lawyers yet, but we will have different lawyers only for those particular settlements, the settlements in the northern TeTaiHauauruAukatiTai. Kia mātou. We call that the northern divide of the country, the original northern divide. And so, good to be back. Good to be back. Been busy doing all sorts of stuff. Yeah, doing all sorts of stuff. And I didn't actually plan to get on late today. It just ended up that way. Just everything ended up going that way. And just me trying to fit everything in the day. Otherwise, I would have got it done about 2 o'clock today. But things dragged on today, so I needed to continue with some of the other stuff I've been doing today, and then I managed to find that time when I had been able to clear everything else away, and then I had that space and time for our kōrero on Tahumaakaakanuimatua settlements tonight. Yeah, so all is going good. Yeah, so there's the, will we join those settlements? Yes. There's been talk for a long time for us, for the Tahumaakaakanuimatua within WhakataungaKereeme, the Moteo Mairi, whether we would get to settle anywhere else, because it seemed like, for years we've been held up in Wairarapa only, yet we claim right from the top of the north to the bottom of the south and up to, now that's another bit of news. Our statement of claim now goes from Punakai ki Tauranga all the way back up to and joins up with Kahurangi National Park and Whanganui Te Taitapu. So we've now covered most probably what would be the entirety of our claim in the country. So that last part there took us a wee bit of a while. There were a few things we needed to check out to make sure. Our claim gets lesser as we get up to Punakai ki Tauranga, and then we make our way forward up into, we make our way up into the Kahurangi National Park, back into there, and within Te Taitapu, Whanganui Inlet, and making our way back round there into Golden Bay, Tākaka, and into those areas there. yeah, so there's more news there. So lots and lots of news. For those of you who don't know yet, yeah, so much has been going down, and I'm just happy I've been able to. Well, put it this way. Sometimes I haven't really focused on my work. I've been worried about other stuff sometimes, but still managing to get my work done, and managing to make sure that we continue to move forward, that we continue to aim for the, aim to fulfill the requirements, of this upcoming settlement. I mean, it's so important to us, so significant to us, because it's our first one. We were just happy to lock into our first one there. We're also striving still to look at Hawke's Bay, Horowhenua, and also Te Whanganui Orotu, Te Whanganui Atara. Okay, because a lot of those claims are the same sorts of, they've had the same sort of impact on tribes that are already in those areas, and upon claimants who have had claims in those areas but did not realise the ahikaroa that we have in the Moteo, and didn't realise that we would be returning into those areas to take up our rights and interests in those areas once again. And we've done that. We've re-established ourselves pretty much, and we've ensured now we've got to do that more materially. We've got to do that more physically in the times to come, in the months to come, actually, and make sure that we get things done really well there, and that we secure our rights to settlements in all those areas as well. But one of the major ones that have come up is TeTaiHauauruAukatiTai. Okay, now when we started off up that way, we made out only about 24,000 population up that way. Now we're around about 45,000. Yeah, 45,000 up that way, up TeTaiHauauruAukatiTai. And that's another bit of news for you, and another bit of new news for you. And this is why we've got so much kōrero for the settlements tonight, and that is because there's so much new that we haven't shared before that has come up over the last 4 weeks. A lot of new detail, a lot of new kōrero that, like for instance, the extent of our entire claim from Punakai ki Tauranga up into Kahurangi National Park, Whanganui Inlet, Te Taitapu again. Yeah, quite, I must say I was surprised, but in the end, as we kept making our way up that way, I realised, it's not so much of a surprise, no. But, yeah, and that is because the South Island has always had most of our most junior, see? The South Island has been always made up of many of the most junior of Tahumaakaakanuimatua. Most junior direct and most direct, we're talking. But most of the South Island is made up of most direct of Tahumaakaakanuimatua. Tahupōtiki included. Tahupōtiki Uri is also a descendant, and Uri descendant, and Uri composite of Tahumaakaakanuimatua. So just letting you know that. And that's why we have such an extensive claim. We've looked over the entirety of the claim, and we know exactly why we're so extensive in the South Island. Really interesting to check all that out, because you can see also a lot of the stuff that the other tribes in the South Island, except for those that made inroads into the South Island over the Musket War period. That's over 1815 and on in towards 1839, 41, 42, 40, 41, 42. Over that period is when the last musket shots were fired within the Wellington area. That's Te Whanganui Orotu, Te Whanganui Atara to us. Kia mātou. Kia mātou, Te Whanganui Orotu, Te Whanganui Atara. So that's a lot more new news for you. And also our population-wise, we found that we are a lot more extensive in the South Island, and that there was, how many did it end up? Around about 60, 75, 75, about 15 to 20,000. We were about 15 to 20,000 out in our count for our tokopai or our full, our numbers, our population numbers, and the count in the South Island. Yeah, we're about 15 to 20,000 out, which makes us in the Motu a grand total of about 275, 280,000. And we still haven't gone past that. That's one of the things we've spoken to. I never forgot that. It was one of the questions last time we spoke, and we actually talked in a hui, myself and our lawyers. One of the questions they asked is about our register, and we only got up to 110,000 in our register, and we left it. There was a lot of things. It's been a real interesting, but I mean, you're made to struggle in this journey, and I'm not embarrassed about that. I'm not worried about that, and I'm not worried about the things we haven't been able to control, and I haven't worried about the things that we haven't that have made us struggle. And in fact, the struggles, all we've done is turn them all around into opportunities and take the opportunities. And we've actually moved on from all the struggles. And that's why our registration count remained at 110,000. Because every time we worked with registrations, what we kept having is the process cutting us off at the pass. And that's where most of our difficulties stemmed from over the last 15 years especially, is a lot of the requirements, a lot of the ways that the process works was cutting in on exactly what we needed to do, so that LNGs and tribes like that, they were able to cut us off at the pass where we needed to reach particular, like for instance the 2012 mandating that was annexed illegally. That's one of our take, and that we have to talk about tonight. So yeah, it's no wonder I'm thinking about that we had to annex illegally, that they annexed illegally into a mandating of 41,000 of our people under the Kahungunu-Rangitane, which is illegal. That's one of the take that we're looking to take to High Court and Supreme Court. Okay, but there's a lot of what we're going to be doing with our lawyers that I won't get into, but there's a lot of desire there for us. That's why I mentioned that, is that some of those take that we want to take to the High Court and Supreme Court. One of the major ones, before I forget it, is the current form that the current status of settlements, the settlement agreement, and the actual settlement agreement itself is currently in a state of, it's been defrauded. It's been defrauded, and we get the feeling that the Kahungunu-Rangitane, they know how we are operating. We are tū, all the time. There's no way that this system, this process of the Crown is going to make us compromise that tūturutanga, our customary ways, our customary strength and power in te ao kōhatu is not going to be compromised by us. So they know that. So it's not surprising to us that they would even try to defraud the whole of the progression of the actual agreement and the actual settlement to date. I'll talk to you a bit more about that, later on. Those of you who didn't know about that, I know there are some people that would know about that, but most of you probably in the Mutu probably did not know that the current agreement, the current settlement in its current state has actually been defrauded by the kahungunu rangitane. Yeah, I'll discuss that later on. Just slowly getting into things here and introducing a lot of the kaupapa. It's all on the update tonight. It's all about the settlements tonight because there's so much in there. And a lot of kōrero and lots more. I guess, yeah, by the next kōrero that I have, we're going to be loaded with lots and lots more kōrero on the settlements to date. And so, yeah, that's coming up. That's the defrauded state of the settlement, and also the fact that we just won't compromise. You know, and we're not that silly. I don't believe we're being arrogant either, because we see the ridiculousness. That's why. We see the ridiculousness in actually settling. Because if you look at the state of our claims, we got claims top of the north, bottom of the south, and all the way back up to Punakai ki Tauranga, and all the way through to Kahurangi National Park, Te Taitapu Whanganui Inlet. And don't say anything, but if we were to settle under the kahungunu in WairarapaTararua, actually that would compromise our manatapu in the whole of the land. That would compromise the whole lot. And in a lot of cases, the actual kahungunu rangitane would probably look to keep control of a lot of the things that we would want total control of in the end. Now, I mean, we could trust them. We could trust them and actually settle. But how much of that settlement will we get control of? You know, all that sort of kōrero hasn't happened yet. All we've got is kahungunu rangitane looking like they're wanting to be, you know, in full control of the entire of the district, and that just cannot be. And when you look at the state of and this is why there's so much kōrero tonight for settlements tonight, because if you look at the state of the settlement bill, I mean, it's fully in favour of a kahungunu settlement, and they've got all their details in there. If we settle under kahungunu, all those details are going to be set in concrete. And most of it, the overwhelming amount of that settlement bill is a load of garbage. See? And this is what stops us. See, if we were to settle under them, we're not just compromising the whole of our tūturutanga, but we would be compromising the entirety of our claims. You know, it just doesn't make sense to us. It doesn't make sense. Okay? And the Crown says, you know, we can benefit from the settlements from under both of those settlement entities, and we just can't see how. We can't see how, because we've got far too much more to lose than either of those groups have. We're not from them, we keep, talking around the facts and the figures around all of that. We're not from them. We don't come from Rarotonga. Our reo definitely isn't Rarotongan. It's definitely Tahitian, and definitely from Raiatea. Definitely Moai. Okay, and then those most direct, our most senior ancestries, where our original line ancestry descents come from, Tutura, Te Matua, Te Awa, and Moai, they're all from Tahiti. Tahiti Raiatea. So where else could we come from? How do we get to be, kahungunu rangitāne from Rarotonga? It just seems ridiculous. So, yeah, maybe it's these take, these matters are some of those important matters that we need to discuss with our lawyers a bit more. But, I can't see us from this point changing that tact, except to continue to offer to the settlement entities that the only way, and plus I have to want to sign it, it has to come through me, has to be okay through me, because I'm the lead representative for Y2225. There are other matters there though, and the only way Y2225 can settle is if, it has my final say on it. I conclude that. And my conclusion on that, my absolute conclusion on that, my complete conclusion on that particular decision to settle would be my signing. I'd be the first signature on the agreement. Okay, no one else. No one else can sign that. No one in the whole wide world except through me. So we know how Kahuna and Rangitane have done this. Well, what they don't realise is how much trouble they've now got themselves into. We want to see how this develops, what it comes to. We also want to see in the defrauded document who knew about that, and so therefore who were all the accessories to that defrauding of the actual agreement and the settlement. This is the one between after they signed the settlement deed in 2016. They called a number of meetings. They didn't even invite us, but it was a meeting around Y2225. Yeah, and so apparently they arranged someone among them to sign on behalf of Y2225. That's fraud. That's fraud in anybody's language. See, so you can't, and yeah, it just sounds so ridiculous. And so we, and we've told the Crown, so they've got to be in a fair bit of trouble at the moment because the settlement entities haven't got back to me yet. It's all quiet in the space, and we know that silence, and that's the silence when they're back to the drawing board with the Crown, talking around things and looking at how things have to advance from there. I don't think they've got much chance of advancing from where they are at the moment. We know that they're going to have some excuses, but the simple fact of the matter is that document was defrauded, and you cannot get away from the illegality of that. Okay? One thing we could have done was taken it to the police, but we decided that we wouldn't, and we would have the Crown deal with it, and we would see what eventuates by the end of that. Even, this is one of the take that we want to take to the High Court and Supreme Court. Why Supreme Court? Because we want to put a stop to everything. Because within the settlement space now, everything's just gone beyond ridiculous, Because actually we've absolutely smashed the kahungunu rangitane out. They're gone, really. That's the reality. And they've been gone for years. They've been gone for years. We've had them smashed out, since probably even around about 2015 onwards. You know, they just haven't bounced back from a lot of the stuff that we've brought to the space since then. And then we've just continually smashed them out after that. No, they're gone, really, and it's just getting ridiculous how they keep bouncing back, and we just laugh. We just laugh because we know that, you know, come a time, there will be another time, and we'll smash them out again, and we just keep smashing them out. We're just sick of it, eh? We're actually sick of it. We're actually sick of smashing them out. We're sick of schooling them. We're sick of, you know. And they've even got a cheek to go and settle. Now, Wairarapa Moana, and they went and settled with, those are some of the other complaints that we've got that we're taking, hoping to take to High Court and Supreme Court. Other cases for their settlements, Wairarapa Moana settlements, Rangitane Rangi settlements, the overwhelming majority, and now the Kahungunu settlements. All three of those groups, Kahungunu, Rangitane and Wairarapa Moana, all their settlements, the huge majority are Tahumaakaakanuimatua settlements, and they actually think that they can get away with all of them. That's not true. That's not true. We are not going to be allowing them to settle on Tahu land, on Tahu ancestries, and try to make out that Tahumaakaakanuimatua comes from them, because, they haven't even proven that yet. How dare they, based on no evidence, actually settle, these big, huge settlements. And actually, you look at the Wairarapa Moana one, that's almost $1 billion worth of settlement in there. They might not have got anywhere near that much in the settlement package, but the actual settlement itself is worth almost $1 billion. That's not right. That's not right. That's hugely criminal. That's hugely fraudulent. And they're going to have to back all those up. But these are some of the cases. All three of those groups are basically goners. They're goners. Because we've got all the evidence for Tahumaakaakanuimatua, and their claims on us are far too vague. E tatauma. See, so you can see how ridiculous things have gone, eh? This is how ridiculous they've gone. And it's a bit obvious, e tatauma, that they're using the process to be able to do that. And this is the Crown. This is how the Crown works. The Crown is a dictatorship, an authoritarian dictatorship, and they're just keeping everything ticking over for them. Now, Kahungunu Rangitane know the illegality of what they're doing, but they won't listen. They just look at the ways that the Crown wants to work. What they're doing is they're continuing to keep ownership under the Crown of all these claims, and more so, we don't want to settle under them. If you have a good look at how those settlements are arranged, if that's anything to go by, then the second that we signed that deal, we're goners. So why would we do that? Why do that? Now, it's a little bit too obvious why they're in on it. Why? Because they want to keep their hands on the purse strings, and they want to keep their hands on the control of the resources. Well, obviously, because the entire WhakataungaKereeme is ours by right. We have the rights and interests. We have all the proof and the evidence that that's the case. They don't have that at all, and their claim on Tahumaakaakanuimatua is too vague. And they have not got the evidence to prove it. And we've proven that. See? And that's why we won't settle under them. Now, that particular matter should be interesting. Should be very, very interesting in the least. So we are going to have a very interesting time dealing with all of these matters, because one way or the other we'll get them dealt with, and one way or the other the Crown, the process, the kahungunu, the rangitane, and, you know, also WhakataungaKereeme, I guess, in there will have to, they'll have to pay their dues, you know, where all these settlements, etc. are concerned, because, as far as we're concerned, the Tahumaakaakanuimatua that they claim isn't even us, see? We're something totally different. I mean, we have 21 leo altogether, see? And they claim, just this one leo that they've seen being used by us, because it's our main leo, we call it our leo matua, and our leo hapu, and now we've added some of the leo hapu to that. Te reo tau mārama, te reo pō kere. Now they keep, they keep trying to claim what they think they can claim based around what a lot of our findings. And then what they start to see is that, they might have a claim there, so they try for it. And you know what? Their claims are too vague. And they don't have the evidence to back up their claims. Neither does the Crown. The Crown doesn't have that either. And for the process to continue to reinforce just out of mere sanction, even though that, it doesn't get rid of the... Remember when I can remember saying that once the Crown has sanctioned over and sanctioned to the kahungunu rangitane, whatever elements and componentries in the settlements that they can't get aligned with what they claim, they actually just sanction them over, and then that gets them to be able to settle like how they've settled, those three groups. Well, now they're stuffed, their settlements, because they're overwhelming. Probably around about 70 or 80% of each of those settlements are gone. They're gone. So kahungunu rangitane, they don't know, but they will need to try to come up with something better than that. Okay, they will have to come up with something better than that. They're just a sanction over, because it doesn't get rid of the illegalities of what they're doing. Take those illegalities to the court. The court's going to look at it how we look at it, not how the Crown process looks at it. They will look at, the court is a totally different kettle of fish. They don't look at things how the Crown looks at it within their authoritarian dictatorship. Although courts are a Crown entity, they have a job to do in terms of them interpreting the law. Okay? Interpreting the law as it stands in the country, nationally, locally, and regionally. They cannot interpret that law based on what the Crown does, based on how the Crown looks at things. If there are illegalities, the courts would have to call those illegalities. They would not be able to deny those illegalities, like what kahungunu rangitane and the Crown have been doing over the last 15 years. Okay, tatauma, lots of kōrero there, So, lots to talk about tonight in the settlements, and we're just scratching the surface there. We're just scratching the surface. When we look at the northern settlements, totally different kettle of fish to what we're settling down these ways. But here we settle the entire of WairarapaTararua te Mataua Māori. Now, we already know what their excuses would be here, the kahunu rangitāne within the settlements, because no one, I mean, I have certain people that would sign under me if I had given them permission. And between 2016 and December of 2022, they had already effected the agreement. Now, what they did was they got aroha they got one of their people to sign on behalf of Y225. That's fraud in anybody's language. It's definite fraud. But you can see the way sanctioning powers operate, eh? You can see the way sanctioning powers operate, eh? Now, they've obviously seen a loophole. They can get one of their people to sign for it to a degree. It doesn't get rid of the illegality of the move, but to a degree. And this is why kahunu and rangitāne are like that. They'll risk things like that. You know why? Because they've been under the crown for so long. It's been about 50 odd years for kahunu. So even though, they're and that's why I pointed that out early on in the piece. I pointed that out way back between 2009 and 2011, that the kahunu were fraudulent. And I showed part of their fraudulent past. See? And now here they are defrauding the actual settlement because they know that we're not going to sign it. We're not going to sign it under them. And that's the only part. Who would sign a settlement under kahunu? I know that we wouldn't. I know that we wouldn't. They wouldn't be worthy to be people to settle over Tahumaakaakanuimatua. I mean, we're one of the most senior in the land. We're part of the top senior. They're part of the most junior. Today they are just, some of the most non-customary people in the land. They are, the status of those tribes is that they are hardly of the strength and caliber of anything anywhere near the caliber of Tahumaakaakanuimatua. So even on that basis, I would never consider even signing any agreement for them to settle over the top of us. In terms of being Tutura, Hapu, Tutura, they're scratching to do that. And this is why they use tribes like Tutura. That's one of our take tonight in the settlement update. The Tutura looks like they're back in there in the mix again with the kahunu rangitāne, and that's why they like to use them, because they've got a lot of karakia. See? They like to try and use those to try and appear that they're a lot more tuturu than they really are, and it doesn't change anything. For people that don't have that tuturutanga like we do, and that's why we hardly use them, because we're always going to have our tuturutanga to rely on. Doesn't matter to us. But one of the things I feel sorry about with a lot of these groups that use the karakia is I wonder if they've even realised what it's going to be like once Tahumaakaakanuimatua does start to use the karakia. Okay? I mean, we've been innovative around all of that sort of thing, though. We've stopped the occult and all that sort of thing. The negative sides of all those things, we already know there's two sides, but even without the negative side of karakia, there's still two sides. You still have two sides, so we're still tuturu. And anyway, in most cases, our tūpuna, most of the day, most of the time, they sat in the positive energies of our tuturutanga anyway. They never sat in both. I mean, what a ridiculous thing to do anyway. That's quite ridiculous to sit in a life, sit in your life. You'd never be able to live quality life because half your life would be in the negative energies. That'd be ridiculous. That'd be ridiculous. And so our tūpuna were very, very smart. Although they had very quick access to the derogatory and to the powers of the negative side of energies that they could access, they remained within the positive. See? And they did that because quality life could be enjoyed, and they had the ability to grow, advance. I mean, let's remember the derogatory and the negative energies of our tūpuna within our tūturutanga did not help us to grow, did not help us to advance. None of that did that. In fact, it was quite the opposite. See, when you're sitting, and this is why they didn't do that. These are some of the teachings of Te Kura-i-a-Warua. See, some of the teachings of Te Kura-i-a-Warua. You shouldn't actually be sitting in both the negative and the positive. You should be sitting in the positive. See, because and that's why they didn't access the negative all the time. See, because you don't grow. And in fact, you go backwards when you access the negative. See, but I wonder if all these people, all these tribes are realizing there's going to come a day when Tahumaakaakanuimatua starts to hook into their karakia. It's only because of me why we don't these days. Because I try to balance things up, because once we do access the karakia, and once we do utilize that every part of our lives and every moment of our lives, we're going to end up unstoppable. Okay? So these tribes don't realize this. Hopefully they're enjoying themselves. Hopefully they're enjoying themselves trying to get one up on us and all the crap that they're causing us and all the things that they're doing to us, all the spitefulness we're putting up with, all the jealousies. I hope they're enjoying all of that, because when that day comes, they're not ever going to be able to catch us. Okay? Because we're not that silly. We're not that silly, and we've got, because I'm someone, I've grown up with my tūturutanga. I'm reo take mairano, and so I've grown up with all the te taha ki te wairua, e nā āhuatanga i ngā tūpuna, ngā āhuatanga katoa i a rātau o roto i ngā kura huna o roto i a rātau ki etahi o ngā mea o rātau whaikaha no ai ki roto ki ngā tū āhuatanga i te ao kōhatu ki ngā mea. See, I don't want to say anything. I don't want to say anything to these people, but once we do, once Tahumaakaakanuimatua takes up their karakia, I wonder whether these people realize that, we're just going to fly past everybody. I wonder if they're realizing that. And the only reason that we're not is because I keep holding us back and keep us, keep a level playing field for us and with anybody else. See? And this is what one of the problems are with dealing with tūhoe. The only thing with, this is one of the things we don't like about tūhoe, is they like dealing with people that they can dominate all out. That they can outdo, and that they can't come back at them and stuff like that. Now, I'm wondering with tūhoe whether they're realising that they would be best not to come back in and join the kahungunu tāne in their taukumekume with us. Because I guarantee you, we've planted tūhoe before. I guarantee you we replant them if they come back in at us and they start to try and dictate to us some of those elements of tūhoe that we don't like. We don't like the way they try to dictate everything for everybody. We don't like that sort of thing. We don't like the sort of feudal way in which they treat Tina. Now, they've got this feudal way of treating Tina people, and that's not right either. That's not right. And in fact, they've got feudal ways non-stop. And in fact, some of the things I think they're quite confused about in Tūhoe is that they're confused about which is the chief, whether the chief is the actual chief who holds the mantle or the tuakana. They actually think it's the tuakana, and they're wrong. They're wrong about that. The chief is the one who wears the mantle. Now, they're not to know Tūhoe, but that's just something I wanted to warn the Tūhoe about. They come back into this again, we're going to plant them again, because we can see that coming a mile away, and they're going to be in an even worse off position if they mess with us anymore, because we just know, and the way that we can do this, we just know Tūhoe so well. We know them so well, and in fact, Tūhoe, I bet over these past number of years, probably 5 to 8 years past, they've got a big fright because of how well we knew them, and that they didn't know themselves as well as they thought. And that's where they've actually fallen over. Now I think they're reinterpreting our reo to be a reo of kahuna. That's disgustingly out of sorts. I'm going to say again, just like I said back in 2005, between 2005 and 2008, I said we are letting go of Tūhoe, because we used to see Tūhoe, and everyone did. Everyone used to see Tūhoe as tohunga ki te reo. Tohunga ki te reo. Definitely tino Māori o te reo. Tino Māori o te reo. Ko hatu e rā tūāhua tanga katoa. Engari, ki te mea he tohunga no rātau ki te reo. O rātau ki te reo. E no tira. Kai te ea Tūhoe, ki te kōrera ki atu i tira i te reo o Tahumaakaakanuimatua, he reo no kahunu, kai te e tēnā. Kai te e rātau ki te ki e reo no kahunu o roto i te 21 o ngā reo o Tahumaakaakanuimatua, he reo no kahunu kai roto, kai te e tēnā. Ara tia no ngā kōrero, ara kia tia no ngā kōrero. E tahi o ngā kōrero e pitana mai i roto o awa. Kai te ki mai, no roto ia i o matua ngā reo hapu e rā mea katoa. Kia mātau āhua e tonu, e rā kōrero, āhua e tonu. No te mea te hanga mai o te reo a hapu, ka pita ke mai i roto i te ure tārewa. Kai te pai, karekau e pitana mai i roto. Te reo o te Māori o te āhua kai roto ke i a io. Te reo Māori o te āhua kai roto ke i a io. Engari te reo a hapu, mai roto tonu i te ura tārewa. Kai te pai. Anā, te reo o te wānanga, pērā tonu i tō te reo wānanga ia te kura ia warua, the reo of kura ia warua. What I'm saying is that because some of the kōrero that is trickled down to us from the urewera and from among the awa, some kōrero saying that all dialects, reo a hapu come from io kai te e tēnā. That's incorrect. That's incorrect. Te Māori o te reo, mai I roto I a io, kia rangi nui rāua ko papahāua nuku, ko ia hoki tērā, mai roto tonu anō e tae ana teki, mai roto I aio. Nāna, tērā reo I roto I te wāna, karakau I te reo a hapu, harakau tērā, I te reo kōrero tiai ki roto ki te wānanga. Te reo te wānanga, he reo matua, he reo o te Māori pērā I aio, Tika tonu ki te ki mai, te reo te wānanga mai I roto tonu anō I te reo ia I o matua, kai te tika tēnā. Engari, te reo hapu, te reo āhapu, karekau, karekau. Okay, so yeah, those are some of the kōrero, and so we're getting some sorts of judgments of the tūhoe coming through and the awa coming through on our reo, and they're trying to interpret it as kahuna, kei te he tēnā, tino he, karekau e reo kahuna, karekau e reo kahuna. Okay, and we've done all the research necessary on that, we've got all the proof on that. Te reo matua, te reo a hapu. You know, because they're not a hapu, see? They're not a hapu, they're only uri composite. They're only uri Māori. Okay? Mai roto waitaha rangi. Ure tārewa. Okay? And waitaha rangi, because they're ure tārewa, they're hapu. Okay, so these are some of the things the tūhoe need to realise. Now, give that up. That's all we're saying. Give that up, the tūhoe, because their interpretations of those things are tino he. Tino he o rātau, and it just shows how lacking in tohungatanga they are. In te taha ki te raka, ki te mātauranga, ki te mōhio anō, ki te reo. Karekau o rātau. Karekau o tūhoe. Okay? And we see that back in 2005 and again in 2008. That was when we declared that. And we reviewed that again in around, I think it was around 2013. And I spoke about that again. And when did we release I think we released the reo of waitaha rangi, because that was the reo of the kahungunu. The reo of waitaha rangi. The other parts of the reo of the kahungunu come from the reo a hapu of Rākainui, and the other part from the reo a hapu of, the reo a hapu nui tonu uretārewa of Tahumaakaakanuimatua te tamarua through Moenga Wahine. Those are the lines of descent of Tahumaakaakanuimatua of Kahungunu. Okay, because those are the lines that waitaha rangi links into in terms of genealogically. Okay. So you cannot interpret those reo like that. And all our reo stem through Tutura te matua first, te awa, and then moai hapu. Okay, and Tutura te matua is our te awa line, our direct te awa line into he mā and into tā whakinui a rangi. He mā I te rangi and tā whakinui a rangi and te awa. Okay, so interesting all that sort of kōrero away. But they've got to cut that out, tūhoe. They've got to stop. Whakapai. Okay, because that's not getting tūhoe anywhere. Have some real cold, hard facts and evidence before they say things like that. And just like I said before, I said don't keep looking at the 21 reo of Tahumaakaakanuimatua, because you'll find we've got all those covered, and none of those are kahungunu. None of those reo are kahungunu. Because kahungunu doesn't have one. Kahungunu is uri. Kahungunu is not ure tārewa. See? So there's no reo a hapu through there. Do you understand that now? And then once you do have an ure tārewa, because you only have one reo. But you notice how the ure tārewa of waitaha rangi, because they're joined with Rākainui, kahungunu shares in the reo of Rākainui, through Iraroa and through Iratūroto. Te tama. Okay, see how that happens? And then through the reo of Tahumaakaakanuimatua, the reo matua, through Tahumaakaakanuimatua te tamarua via moenga wahine. Okay? That's our tūhoe, but we're getting sick of all of that. Now we're starting to wonder if this lot are ever going to, give this up, because we're getting sick of schooling years. We're getting sick of proving outright that, we're right. And we've proven that a little too many, a little too much over the last 15 years. And that's how we knew we had just beaten. Because we've kept on defeating you in every debate, we've kept on defeating you in every stoush, in every conflict, and everything we've come into head to head. We've taken all those out. And we're getting quite sick of it. At some point, kahunu rangitāne have to grow up and give this up. I'm sort of wondering if the Crown realises, but a lot of the mistakes here, and in fact, just about all the mistakes here that have gone down over the last 15 years, and we're going on 16 years now, but over the last 15 years, a lot of the mistakes have come from Crown errors, Crown flaws, etc., etc., etc. Okay? But, interesting stuff, because, and to have all these sorts of things a part of settlements, are we going to get to settle still though? Yeah, we'll get to settle. We'll get to settle. What's the worst scenario for us? We could end up settling independently. Okay, and that, and striving for that independent settlement, that might be, who knows, sometime down the track, a couple of years down the track, but we'll still get to settle. But, we want to see what sort of we can organise through our lawyers, what we can organise through the Crown, etc., to see if we can effect settlement properly. We also don't believe, because of the current form, the current form of settlement, TeTaiHauauruAukatiTai. I'll just, okay, we've still got plenty of time. I was just checking the time. The current form of settlements, and as you've heard, is defrauded. Look, because of the current form, we actually do not want it to carry on in its current form. We actually want it to be, renewed. We want a whole new settlement agreement to be drawn up, and for that part of the process to start again. But we don't believe that the kahunu rangitāne should have control of that. We think we do. We think we should have control of that. We think because most of the settlements, of the overwhelming number of settlements of Wairarapa Moana, of Rangitāne Nui a Rangi, and of the kahunu are ours, that actually, that's all the more reason that we should be, we should have control of that settlement. So we're going to try and see what we can do there, what we can affect there, and see that we can't affect a lawful settlement, a legal settlement, a legal agreement with the other tribes in this. I mean, Tutura, customarily, they're our taina anyway. They should be settling under us. So, it's just ridiculous that the Crown keeps going on about their process requirements, and that, they regardless of how it makes us have to compromise our seniority and our manatapu in the land, they still want us to seek to settle under the requirement. Well, yet again, we refuse. We still refuse. Okay, and another part of the The settlements update is our what we're waiting on at the moment. Firstly, we're going to end up having talks with our lawyers, so there'll be lots more new call that'll come out of that, and that would be within the next week or so. The next couple of weeks, we will know when that will be. The next week or so, I'll know this week, but yeah, depending on the timing, when I can book that meeting in for, that's when we'll have that. Once we've finished that, I'm hoping that we can get on with the current talks that we're waiting for, and they are talks with the settlement entities, and we want that to be our final talks. Yeah, we're done with talking after that, because we're sick and tired of them messing about. Yeah, we're getting hōha now. We're at a real hōha stage in the process. We still want to settle, but in the current form of settlement, we don't want to look at the agreement, even with compromise. We don't want to look at it at all, because it's been defrauded. In fact, that really aggravated us. We got upset with that. Because it just, after hearing that, it came back to us, right from 2014, there was just no way we were going to trust kahunu or rangitane. There was no way we were going to, compromise anything to sign an agreement with either of those groups. We thought about it, we even talked about it, the fraudulence of past times of these groups. Now, we're not that silly. Sign an agreement with fraudulent people like that, and you're likely to get ripped off. Or something's not likely to be right. And we had already been through a lot of crap with them anyway to date. So we weren't ever going to trust those people. And you have a good look at them now. This is why we were so aggravated once we heard that. And we only got that news about 3 weeks ago. Was it about 3 weeks ago? 3 or 4? 3 weeks ago. Okay. We got that news. We got really upset with that. Because even if we had organised compromises from either side. I mean, the compromise we had asked for is that our tūturutanga is kept intact. And that, which means that we don't actually effectively, how do I put it, officially settle under them. But we settle as Tahumaakaakanuimatua and settle as the tūturu, tuakana, mana tapu in the land from Tutura te matua, te awa of Moai Hapu, and all that sort of thing. And we keep all those things intact, but still settle within the same requirement of the process, however, with some compromise on either side. See, do you see the compromises we've been making there? And that's what we've been trying to do. So, yeah, we got upset because we thought to ourselves, well, even in that, it was looking pretty dodgy. So it sort of cut out every other possibility for us. And that aggravates us. Because that means there's no way in the world that we're going to ever be able to settle in this round. But then, settling in this round is still possible. But, yeah. And it always comes out that way, And kahunu rangitane, there's nothing more that they would like to be able to close everything out for what they want, directly under them and all that. They're not even worth it. They're not worthy of Tahumaakaakanuimatua under them. They don't even provide the proof that we should be. They don't even, I've asked for whakapapa lines of original ancestry descends from them, of Tahumaakaakanuimatua. They can't even produce that. And yet here is the settlement, the settlement offer before me. It comes before me and it says, if you settle under kahunu rangitara, I thought, what grounds are they able to reinforce and substantiate any sort of settlement of that fashion in the first place? How are they even getting considered as settlement entities that can settle in this round? Because they're not even legal iwi. They're not even iwi. And most of the tribes in the Motu aren't. See? We don't care about people calling themselves iwi because we know what they mean. They're calling themselves a people, and that's, tao kōhatu, tūturu. That's not even true. That's not what we call a people. And tao kōhatu and tao kōhatu. You have to be hapu. Hapu, and or hapu nui tonu uretārewa. That's an iwi. Under those circumstances, what I'm saying is that's what makes you a people to our tūpuna. See? Now, those particular hapu are made up of anywhere between 12 and 16 uretārewa. Okay? So by rights, at least 12 or 16 reo. See? And iwi are the most extensive tribal conglomerate groups that you can establish in the days of our tūpuna, of our ancestors. See, so yeah, very, very interesting. Very interesting, all of that sort of thing, and something that, we find interesting that a lot of people out there, they just don't know. And they keep calling their tribes iwi and they're not. And then you look at their tribal numbers, and most of them about between 30,000 and 60,000. That's not even an iwi number. In Te Ao Kōhatu, iwi numbers were around about between 100 and 120,000. See? And they were around about the sizes of the 7 iwi of the Mutu, of Moai, of Te Awa, of Tahumaakaakanuimatua, of Māmoe, of Moriori, okay, of Awa, and Te Atiawa Nui no Ringa Te Rangi. They were each around about those sizes, around about. Okay? But then, of course, at some point, some of those, a couple of those iwi, for Morway, they got smaller a lot earlier than that. Probably around about the 1200s, between the 1200s onwards, Morway started to lose a lot of its population, and this because a lot of its population was starting to integrate into iwi groups and extending on lots of different uretārewa, and so expanding into iwi. And that's what happened to the Moai. Yeah, so... But, and so those sorts of details are very, very interesting, even like when you look at us, for this day and age, 275,000 to 280,000. That's where we're at today. That's the numbers of the Tahumaakaakanuimatua in the land. And within an area of 1.8 million plus people. That's still the case. Just our numbers we didn't have right, and we realised that after recounting and rechecking and reviewing in the South Island, and we found that we actually have a lot more numbers down there than we thought. We're around about 15 to 20,000 out on our count. So, yeah, 275 to 280,000 today. Okay, and so very interesting, eh? Very interesting what we've come to. And so you can understand how the Crown operates. This does not make things legal, by the way. But the kahunu rangitane like to operate within that fashion because they like to be able to, still look like they can get away with all this stuff, without being able to, get head up for illegalities that they're messing about with. But they met their match there when they came across us, because Tahumaakaakanuimatua doesn't let things like that go. If you're messing around with illegalities and anything like that to do with us, your history with Tahumaakaakanuimatua. And so, but once we tie everything down, once we have everything set in concrete, exactly what we're doing, I am pretty sure I will let everybody know publicly. And I'm betting that by my next kōrero, everything will be set in concrete for in terms of exactly what we will be doing going forward in terms of the settlements from that point in time. Okay. So it's interesting. It's very, very interesting that, the sort of situation that we have at the moment, and that, the kahunu rangitane, they basically depend on the Crown to save themselves. They keep, even some of them, they go around telling false kōrero, because they can save themselves through loopholes with the Crown and blah, blah, blah. They'll go around and say things like, the tahu are just blowing and stuff like that, and we've always been the iwi, and that's not true. That's not true. Neither of them are iwi. See, and that's what makes their actual claims and their settlements both illegal anyway. I mean, all these things. And this is what we're aiming for at the moment through our lawyers. All these things, when they come out of Supreme Court is the highest court in the land. And if we're looking to take take like that to conclude them in Supreme Court, geez, your history. And if you want to see, a real court battle, that'll be a real court battle, that one. That'll be a real court battle. And, we think that the kahunu rangitane will look to utilise the Crown even throughout that whole battle. But what they don't realise at the moment is that we're talking around taking the Crown down as well. So, we don't think the Crown's going to have it in them to be able to save the kahunu rangitane or WairarapaTararua. But they may be able to save themselves. But who knows? Who knows? Yeah, lots to talk about around there still, around all those different issues still. Lots of different issues still to talk around as well. Like, for instance, around the vague claims of us. You can't claim any group vaguely, through vagaries of knowledge, not have any complete evidence to prove and substantiate your claims that they actually do come from you, and then state through the process, that you do, that we do come from them, and that's that. So will you settle under us? You know, all those sorts of things just don't make sense. Yeah. They're being just absolutely ridiculous. And we think just trying to be outright cheeky. Yeah. We think they're trying to be outright cheeky. And they don't know, but they're never going to get a signature out of us for any settlement solely under kahunu rangitane. That's not going to happen. With the compromises we want, yes. But solely annexed to stay only under them, no. That's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. Just a little bit more to reinforce around what the Tūhoe are talking about. We don't know whether the Tūhoe are thinking straight, because some of the evidence they have to be looking at has to be some of the around some of the, there are some similarities in Rarotongan, but then that's around all of the islands. All of the islands have some similarities in their reo, but it's the particular aspects and concepts of that reo that pertain solely only to the Tahumaakaakanuimatua claim to them, and the Tutura claim to them, the Te Awa claim to them, and the Moai. See? And you'll find that the overwhelming majority of those now, apart from there being a little wee part that would be similar, and that the Tūhoe might be just reading too much into that, the similarities, and not recognising that there's an overwhelming number of lack of similarity, and amount of lack of similarity in our reo, that tells you that actually it's Tahumaakaakanuimatua. Okay? And we know all of our reo, the whole 21 of our reo. That's a lot of reo to have, eh? And yet we only have 12 uretarua. Now the thing is, the different uretarua have different amounts of reo. See? That accounts for Tahumaakaakanuimatua, which I think itself has about 16, I think, if I remember a number. That's Tahumaakaakanuimatua itself. That's all the top lines themselves. About 16 altogether. See? And that's including the top 6 of the uretarua. Okay? The top 6 of the super tribes of United Tribes and all super tribes. Okay? That's including Uri composites and Hapu composites. In the top 6. Around about 16 deal between them. And then they branch out into the different Hapu uretarua, or the composite Hapu. Those Hapu with one uretarua. Those Hapu with one or more are Hapu Māori. Okay, that's what I mean. I just thought I'd pick up on that term, Hapu Māori. Hapu Māori is like an Uri Māori, like that's a naturally formulated Uri. See, that's an Uri Māori, an Uri Māori. A Hapu Māori is a naturally formulated Hapu, or an official Hapu. Okay, which can have one Hapu uretarua, or several. Okay, like for for Kahu, which has 5, Tahumaakaakanuimatua, which has 5, and Mamwe, which has 7. Okay, and so, interesting, eh? But to understand all those sorts of things, what we're going on about, you have to understand the development of an iwi and how it develops. It pretty much depends on natural growth. Okay? He hanga Māori mai. Aye. And so we think that largely is the biggest problem with the tūhoe. And similarly, we believe that awa sort of is a little bit like that too. Like they sort of can't accept, because of where we're at with our tūturutanga today and where we are as the enormously damaged super tribes that we are today. They can't stand the situation. And so they try to reinterpret the actual realities of our situation. They try and reinterpret it because they can't stand the realities of our situation. Or the kawaura. Yeah, all those sorts of things. The kawaura, me rā huatanga katoa. The tupu Māori, you know? The hanga Māori mai. Uri Māori, yeah. Hapu Māori. E rā tū huatanga katoa. I'm not saying we come from a people that is called Māori. That's not true. There's, pre-1769, circa 1769 AD, when Captain Cook got here, there was no such thing as a Māori people. That had to have developed here throughout the time that Captain Cook was here, right up to 1835 and right into 1840. Because you see the word come up most prominently in Te Tiriti, 1840. The word Māori to describe our people. And just like most things with our reo, and because the missionaries were the people that wrote the reo down mostly, a lot of what they retained has pretty much given us an inaccurate picture and worldview of the reo of old. And that's what mostly is the difficulty and the problem with our reo today. But yeah, I go back to my comment, tūhoe and awa people are most likely to be upset with kawaura of the day because they can't handle it. It's brought us into a situation where they want to try and control what they can't control, and you shouldn't do that anyway. And this is probably why a lot of those things are starting to bounce on the tūhoe people, because they've always tried to control what usually in te ao kōhatu you can't control. Like in my ex-whānau mob, I better get on to that before I forget, because we're quite quickly coming up to calling it time for this kōrero. It's almost 20 to 10, which would make it a almost 2-hour kōrero, which is, if you can remember back, how long we want to keep our kōrero. And it's been all about the settlements tonight, eh? It's been awesome. Aloha mai. It's been awesome because we're getting the real lowdown on everything that is the main part of our kaupapa within these kōrero anyway, within the kōrero that I bring. Is usually these days on the settlements. So let's see if we can get control on the settlements and actually settle this once and for all. Because we're still the only iwi in the region, well, the primary iwi in the region. I mean, any other iwi is just a composite of ours, like Māmoe, Tahumaakaakanuimatua, and Kahu, the composites of our iwi. Okay, so we're the primary iwi, and we're the only ones, primarily, that can claim to the entire of the region. So what's been the use? I mean, to us, all of that sort of stuff is illegal. I mean, Kahunu can't prove that they're an iwi. Just merely saying that they're an iwi, it doesn't make them an iwi. And, the natural growth of iwi takes a lot more than people think, than just having a whole bunch of people calling themselves kahungunu and we're iwi and saying that we're an iwi. That's not good enough. That's not good enough. You've got to have the structure, you've got to have the form, you've got to have the chiefships, you've got to have the seniority, you've got to have the ariki, you've got to have the extents of advancement, you've got to have the growth. You've got to have, and it took our iwi in the country. I mentioned the 7 iwi before. Remember, have you ever heard me talk about the growth of those iwi? They grew over between about 600 to 700 years. Okay, so it takes a long time to grow naturally. And these are some of the things that people like the Tutura and the they're quite hoha about. Things like that. Change the order of things to how they see it should fit in the current day. And they're wrong to do that. They need to leave things like that. And that's why I wanted to mention my ex-whānau more, because that's the biggest problem in that whānau. And one of the major reasons that I left, and I'll never go back. I'll never go back because, and they're not all mob. I mean, I call them ex-whānau mob because they're led by elder siblings that are mob. They run things quite feudally. There's a lot of feudal behaviour and there's a lot of feudal targeting goes down. They're mob, so they're gang. And so there's a lot of feudal ways in there. They're tūhoe as well. They feed off the tūhoe too much. They get carried away with their karakia. They use a lot of the derogatory. They don't realise while they're being derogatory to other people, they're not growing themselves. They're actually not getting anywhere. And this is why. And then what do? They turn around and they blame me. Why? Because I'm the real chief of that whānau. I hold the mantle. Our mother and father gave that to me. Why? Because they knew I was the rightful chiefly one among the whole lot of us. Not all of us are gang, mind you, and overwhelmingly we're not gang, see, which is a good thing, eh? And that's another reason I left that whānau, because of those people, among them there are other leaders. And they could lead that group. They wouldn't make them chief, because I've taken that away from the whānau. Rightfully, there's no one else really that can take that over from me, except for people in my whānau, once I hand that down through my whānau. See? And my whānau, though, the reason why I pulled out is because my whānau holds the top in Tahumaakaakanuimatua. We are the top whānau. There's no lineage or ancestry higher than ours. That's how far I've come within the natural hierarchy. That's how far I've been able to grow. I'm the teina from within that ex-whānau mob that grew through kurahuna. The kurahuna that I have, that as I grew and matured, I began to use a lot more and felt safer about using, apart from, amongst a whole lot of jealousies. There's overwhelming jealousies sometimes, and I couldn't handle it. I couldn't handle the jealousies. I mean, even now, a lot of jealousies I've been putting up with, and I understand the elder siblings, because I always tell the truth, and sometimes I tell a bit too many truths, and I tell the truth about them, and they feel put down, so they start making up stories and put me down too with those stories that are all made up. And yeah, it just doesn't get too fair sometimes. It's not a fair contest sometimes. And they don't realise, but they haven't been taught properly, and this is why they're not getting anywhere. They're not set up to succeed. This is why they're not getting anywhere. See, they haven't looked at that, but they keep turning to me and blaming me. Well, what I'm hoping to do at some point is be able to meet with whoever the leaders are that they choose among them. And hopefully I can help them to sort their whānau out one day, because at the moment they'd be looking like disaster still. And I'm not returning. I'm going to continue leading from the position that I'm in. I'm going to continue being the taiōpuru ariki mataura that I am, but from the position that I'm in, from within our church, from within wherever I am based. But that's the other reason I pulled out of that whānau, because it gave me the ability to grow the Tahumaakaakanuimatua in a much freer way, in a much more powerful way. And because we were being stunted while I was still in that whānau, and there's no way I'm going back, because that's all they'll try and do again. You know why they do things like that? Because they get fooled into thinking that it'll help them to grow and not us. They don't realise that they haven't grown one iota. I've been watching them and they're not getting anywhere. And why that is because they haven't changed. See, they need to make a lot of changes, but they haven't done anything. That's what's wrong with it. It's not because I'm not in there. It's because they haven't done the work, the homework. They haven't put in the hard yards to actually start the growth within themselves. See? They're sticking with kahungunu, tūhoi, mob, feudalism, throwing karakias around that are derogatory. And I don't know at the moment whether they're throwing any more occult, but I know that they're throwing occult ones around, because they've tried to hit me with there's been about 3 of those that they've tried to hit me with, and they ricocheted off. No, I don't know whether those occult karakia have actually hit them back, but yeah, I've seen a lot of misfortune hit them, so perhaps they did. They got hit back themselves. I'm not sure. I'm not sure about that. But I just wanted to mention that because over the last few weeks or so, I have felt a little bit sorry for them, but they don't know. They don't know. Those ones calling for me to go back in there. I'm pretty wrapped with all the others. Those that are not gang, I'm pretty wrapped with them. I know some of them have pulled out of the whānau as well, but there are some still in there. And they're still holding up the fort. But wisdom would tell you, if you are wise enough, when the last I was in there, I was trying to get people to stand on Tahumaakaakanuimatua. What they have to realise is, because they wouldn't do that, that was why I moved. Because I knew all the feudal ways of treating my kids, the feudal ways of treating me, the derogatory karakia, all that sort of thing was going to continue on. So I shipped out. And I officially pulled my whānau out. So my whānau officially is not part of their whānau. And we're not going to return. And that's how I want it. That's how I want it. Why? Because I've just absolutely had enough. I've had a whole lifetime of persecution from these people who are just jealous. What they don't realise is that being elder siblings means you have a responsibility to your teina. And that's about it. I mean, you're not there to beat them up or get them beaten up or whatever you're trying to do to them, or beat up their kids, or, stand over them so you can get what you want and all that. So these are the silly things that they do, the immaturity amongst those of that whānau. And as far as I'm concerned, I mean, last time I heard that one of the people who have heard my comments, I have mentioned that to other people, that they are still built for disaster. That's my exact comment. I've said they're still built for disaster. You know what was the first response of one of the elder siblings in that whānau? He says, that'll be the day. That'll be the day. See, and this is why they're going to continue to go downhill. Because these elder siblings are just far too arrogant. They're wrong. They're actually wrong about that, and I'm serious. They're built for disaster. See, and this is why they're not going to get anywhere. But to try and help them out, because I've been feeling a little bit sorry for them, to try and help them out, what I'm hoping to do is meet with whoever their leaderships are and let them know the cold hard facts and the truth. And that's why that's why they can't handle me sometimes in there, because I give them the cold hard facts. And that's what they are. They're built for disaster. That's exactly what they are. That's the sort of arrogance you get from them. Oh, that'll be the day. We're not built for disaster, we're built to conquer. Then don't ask for me anymore then. Yeah, don't ask for me anymore then, because, see, this is what I don't like about them. This is what I don't like about them, that the minute I give them some advice, they jump up and down. Which brings me back to the simple fact that the only way that they want me in there is for what they want me for. They want me to support kahuna, and I'm not about to do that, because I ain't kahuna. I'm Tahumaakaakanuimatua. I've been Tahumaakaakanuimatua the last 26 years. I ain't rangitāne either. Neither of those tribes are iwi, so neither should I, proclaim either of those tribes. Okay? And even if we say there were waitarangi, I mean, that's only Hapu re Tararua. Today, what we want to know is which iwi are you from? See? And so we are Tahumaakaakanuimatua of Te Awa, of Moai Hapu. Those are our iwi. But my iwi on the ground, Tahumaakaakanuimatua Tutura. Okay? Okay, so we've got to be sure, and I mean they've got to realise. I mean, you can't survive on feudal ways. Hey, you can't survive on feudal ways. That's not the way to survive. I mean, just dependence on the mob, dependence on any gang, being gang for a start. Is that a way to survive? Well, they haven't survived yet. You know, they haven't gotten anywhere really yet. They're still in the same battle they were in 40 years ago. Still in the same battle. Okay? And Tūhoe hasn't gotten them anywhere. You know, they're severely sucked in by Tūhoe. And they've been badly trained. Badly trained. And I think they don't realise. But that is the way that the Tūhoe perhaps decided that they were going to train them, because, and one of the main reasons for that is because they needed to learn the hard way. And they're learning this the hard way. And those are their lessons though. This is not about me. You know, their battle is not about me. They need to stop asking for me. But there's a way I can help them. This through the leaders that they adopt. I'm staying with Tahu. Tahumaakaakanuimatua. There's no way I'm switching back at all. So they needn't think that I'm ever going to go back to their whānau, because I'm not. And they're needn't going to think that I'm ever going to make my whānau, any of my kids or my mokopuna, officially of their whānau ever again at all. Because they don't know, because they'll never get that. Okay? Why? Because we're not tūturu kahunu. Kahunu is not even an iwi. Why stand on that? Why stand on a kahunu uri? Why stand on a rangitāne hapu ure tānewa? Hapu Māori noiho. It just seems quite pointless. you know, a lot of those sorts of things. And yeah, as I'm coming up to time, almost 10 o'clock now, I realise, no, we haven't really gone off our kōrero, we haven't diverged or anything like that. We're still right on target. Because settlements matters to all of our whānau. And these people, I think they go by, you know, if I was to go back into their whānau, I'd be accepting of kahuna. There's no way I'm ever going to be accepting of kahuna. I'm not kahuna. I'm Tahumaakaakanuimatua. My whānau is not kahuna. My whānau is Tahumaakaakanuimatua. My kids are not kahuna. Okay? And I've got all the proof of that. See? You show me your proof, I'll say to them. Where's your proof that we're all kahuna? Because as far as I can see, kahuna is not even blimmin' iwi. So how could we all be kahuna? And it's just gone beyond ridiculous there too. They're beyond ridiculous in that ex-whānau mob. And they need to grow up and realise and mature and understand that what I'm saying is correct. They're still built for disaster. Okay? And Tahumaakaakanuimatua and I have grown exponentially since I left that whānau. Staying within that whānau was stunting our growth. And the extent to which, I mean, especially once I joined the church, I mean, life has become, you know, the quality of life spiritually is just abounding, you know. All the things of the Lord, the gifts of the Lord, the giftings, everything. I'm enjoying those within the Lord. I mean, you know, I'm a part of the Open Brethren now, so I don't, all my spiritual giftings, I've given them up. And I look towards the Lord for all those sorts of things. And they still, you know, but they work more powerfully for me now because they work through the Lord. All those spiritual giftings. So I no longer hold those. However, my chiefship, I hold on to that all the time. I can remember talking to some of our elders in the church around my chiefship. They couldn't understand why I hold on to my chiefship. Well, rightfully so. You know, the law of the land doesn't cease just because I'm inside the church. The law doesn't cease in there. And if it does, there's something wrong in there. Hey, because you can't tell me people don't do things wrong in the church. Because people do. But if they see it as the Lord's domain, yeah, rightfully so. Rightfully so. It's the Lord's domain, but it's also our domain. You know, where there's people, there's law. Where there's law, there's a ariki. See? See? Because I'm a part of the law of the land. You can't count my ariki out. And that's why the Lord has treated me as such within the church. But once I learned that the things out of my ariki, the ariki powers that I have, I needed to give those up to the Lord. I then done that. But it won't be too far away. I will take up my karakia, as I should have years ago. You know, I should have had those actually while I was still at school, just about finished school. Yeah, I should have had my karakia around about those times. But I've never cared for them, you know, that's all. I've never cared for them. And, you know, I've always been out front anyway. I've always been, you know, lead all the time. I've always been a leader all the time. I've been born into that sort of lifestyle. And so that's how I know so much about that. And then, yes, no wonder, because I ended up becoming Taiopuru Ariki Mataura. of the Tahumaakaakanuimatua. I also hold the ariki of 7 ariki mantles as well. And within my taiōpuru, we have 7 waka confederations or canoe confederations that are under my taiōpuru as well. Of all our descendants, we're not talking about the entire of the confederations, just our descendants within those. And 6 other of our Hapu uretārewa are all under my mantles. So it's no wonder I was brought up around leadership the way I was, and it's always been very, very difficult for me to make wrong decisions and wrong choices. I can't say I've always been correct, because I haven't. But when I've been inaccurate for less important things. It seems like the bigger, the decision, the better I get. And so I've always made, there's an art to that. And I just tended to grow into abilities and giftings like that naturally. I just tended to grow into those sorts of things naturally. I'm trained though. I am trained, just like in music and stuff like that. It's a hard case because people still haven't realised in my music I don't actually rely on the karakia. But once I have my karakia, I'll always have all of that sort of stuff on me. But yeah, I never actually rely on that. Why? I don't have to. I'm trained. So, all those sorts of things. And that's, those sorts of things are the problem with the ex-whānau mob. And what I'm hoping is that they turn over a new leaf. Because actually the reason they're not getting anywhere is because of themselves. Yeah, nothing to do with me. Nothing to do with me. It's not because I pulled out of there. I pulled out of there to do them some good. Otherwise, they were always going to be conflicting with me. See? Because that's what started to happen. They were always going to end up conflicting with me. You know why? Because we were always going to stand on tahu. And we were never going to be kahuna in there. And I thought, well, part of the problem is us being here. We're always going to conflict. So I officially pulled my whānau out. Okay? And when you're tahu in a feudal situation like that, you're likely to get hit. Or there's likely to be big fights. Scraps to the death. And that's the problem with me. I get that wild. People call it scraps to the death, and they know what it's like to fight against me. You end up scrapping to the death. Because that's what I'm like. That's how angry I can get. But, So I said to myself, well, before the first of those scraps comes up, I better get out of here. So, it's not as though if I did go back into that whānau, that would happen, but I would expect something like that to happen. Yeah, I would expect something like that to happen. Because there's no way I'd return peacefully. I'd be tahu all the way, and there's no way I'd be going kahungunu. And they'd have a big fight on their hands. And so what's the use of returning? If they're not going to change, because it's actually Tahumaakaakanuimatua in this region. If they're not going to change, then what's the use? They don't realise the problem with them is their inability to see that they need to change. Yeah. They need to stop throwing derogatory karakia. They need to stop trampling others and being feudal. All their feudal behaviour is taking them further and further down the wrong track, down the wrong way, and they're failing. Why? Because they're failing themselves. See? There's no way I can do anything for them because I'm Tahumaakaakanuimatua, and we are building just fine, and life for us is absolutely massive. Now, I haven't even really cared about all the crap going down. Oh, yeah, okay, some of it makes me angry. You know, some of the crap in the church that goes down because they've been causing trouble there, and I know it's from the ex-whānau mob. So I just laugh my head off half the time. But I can't say I don't get angry, because I do. But I've been working with the Lord on all those sorts of things, so I'm okay there. And if, you know, I got terribly angry with anybody there, yeah, this is a part of some things that I'm not enjoying, is that the males, you know, some of the males are just atrocious. You know, Pākehā males, they need to sort themselves out, I think, a lot of these Pākehā males, because they've got some real props in there. And I'm starting to dislike a lot of that stuff. In fact, some of it's made me real angry. And luckily I have the Lord on side, and the Lord will tell me, you know, and guide me through those times, and has done so. And what I'm really happy about is that I've been able to come through those times that I felt angry at some of these guys. So, but yeah, anybody else, I've been fine. But all the trouble, has always come from the ex-whānau mob. And it's been the whole problem with my whānau anyway, and they are built for disaster. I mean, they're never going to get me back in there. Why? Because they're still jealous of me. See? They're still jealous of me. And what will happen once I go back in there? They're still going to disrupt my life, interfere with my life, and try and rearrange things to suit them. And that's never going to work with me. I'm going to end up punching their lights out. You know? That's, not a good situation to end up going back in. That's not a whānau as far as I'm concerned. It's just a mob hub. And I wouldn't be too far from correct in that description. It's a mob hub. And that's how a mob hub operates, like that. They don't care about anything else, about their feudal mob ways. And that's it. And, and they would look at that as not a disaster. Why? Because they're used to that. Well, good on them, because we're not going to live for that. We're not going to stay in any of that sort of crap. I mean, they can shove that up their bum. As far as I'm concerned, I don't have mine. But, here I am going on about my ex-whānau mob again. But just to touch on a lot of the things, and that's what they've done in my life. Why? They're just too jealous. And plus some of the home truths I've told about some of them, they haven't enjoyed that. I go, who cares? At least it's the truth. I haven't made up any bullshit about you. Yeah? Who cares? And especially when it's things that have hurt you deeply through your life. And those are usually the things I talk about. And the more I've talked about things like that, the more I've been able to cope with things like that. So, forgiveness, I've got no worries with that. But that only goes so far. Apologies only go so far. I mean, these are people that for years and years and years in our lives, they knew that they were doing wrong. You know, so to apologize, though I'll accept that, and though I'll forgive them, you know, what, to return to them? I doubt it. Yeah, that'd never work. I mean, I think the change for them that I would need would be far too much for them. Okay? And they'd have to turn over a whole new leaf. Go Tahumaakaakanuimatua, and that's that. Throw everything they've got. You know, could they do that? I doubt it. Some of those that are not gang, maybe. But all the rest, you know, the hard out mob, I doubt it. They'd never handle that. So there's no way I'd ever return. Okay? And why is that? Because I know the facts and the foundations and the establishments of iwitanga. And our rohe, wenua, is Tahumaakaakanuimatua. Okay? All right. And so that's us for tonight. And that's where settlements are at the moment, e Tatauma. That's where our settlements are at the moment. Yeah, bit of a situation there, eh? Lots going on. I'm pretty sure, though, at some point there will be a settlement. I'm hoping that in some way we can get a lot more control on that settlement. By rights, we should be able to get there. We'll see what our lawyers can do. We'll see what comes out of talks. And even if some real significant turns happen, some real significant talks, I might jump on, even if it's earlier than after the next 4 weeks. I'm starting to enjoy not getting on. It's starting to help me focus more on my other work, because sometimes I'm focused a lot on my kōrero as I'm doing things. So, yeah, it's important for us to settle, though. We see the importance in it. But they're never giving us the conditions. They're never giving us the terms. They're always wanting everything for them. And it's not workable if that's the case. It's just, in fact, it is just absolutely ridiculous. And that's why we want to take things to court, because we want the ridiculousness to stop. We want the flawed manner and the corrupt nature of the process to stop, to desist. The ridiculousness to desist, to cease. Okay? And for all these matters to conclude right there at Supreme Court level. So that's what we've been talking around. We have been discussing things briefly with our lawyers, but we will know exactly what comes through concrete from there over the next couple of weeks as we look to meet with them face to face, kanuhi ki te kanuhi, as an entity, as Titahu Trust Tahu Investments Limited, as the runanga. I'll have my runanga when we meet, te runanga nui o Tahu. And we will meet with them at National Office. Okay? He tatauma. Lots of kōrero there, eh? Yeah, so even if there is something turns around really well for us, sorry I haven't got any better news for you. We should have already settled by rights. We should have already settled. But because of the nature of things, when things are defrauded like that, that's not something we like. That's not something we're really happy with, and especially to deal with these two groups after fraudulence of that nature. There are accessories to that fraudulence and also witnesses to that fraudulence. We want them brought up to have to answer to the whole thing as well. All those people will have to answer. And if some of them are crowned, then they're in big trouble. They're in big trouble. Okay, and that's our kōrero for this week of the 19th. If I'm not on at any time before, if there's anything real significant that comes up for us e Tatauma within the settlements, Tahumaakaakanuimatua settlements 2023, I'll let you know. And I'll jump on, give us an extra kōrero there. Otherwise, at the moment, it'll be the next 4 weeks from now. And, so let's give it all up to the Lord and glorify our Lord, our Father. Remember, some of the things that I've spoken about tonight are aspects that, even though I include a lot of different things that we utilize, some of these taonga we utilize, are usually not looked at in a tūturu o tāoko hatu fashion, like Christianity, like reliance on the Lord, like God-centric. But this is why we're using these things in this way. Because our other iwi and lots of the tribes out there need to start to change their way of thinking around those sorts of things, because that's not true. That's not true. There's tūturu as anything else. A lot of our tribes go on about io matua te kore, but they don't realise that the same God has the same, in fact, the same God is far more powerful. Yet that is of the same realms. Well, this is the God of our tūākana. See? Now, you can't tell me that if this is a God of our tūākana, it doesn't apply to us and cannot apply to us in a tūturu fashion. That's not true. That's not true. We're very, very colonized people if we can't see that. That's not true. Okay? Because we're part of God's people in that respect, and because we have lineage through the ihiperu, the Hebrews, we call them ihiperu. The ihiperu, the Hebrews, and God's people, the Jews. Okay, and we're not actually Jew, but we do connect. We do have some tūākana connections among the Jews, and I've mentioned them. There's Naphtali, there's Joseph. And I, through personal whānau connections, other of my whānau around the world, I have Simeon and what's the other one? I've just forgotten my other connections. So I have Joseph, Naphtali, Simeon, and there's one other I have connection to personally. But you've got to stop thinking that our tūturu world was locked down into just one way and that's it. That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. If it wasn't diverse, if it wasn't made up of several different ways, if it didn't have the diversities that we do actually have, tūturu, and the ability to grow within the world, though our world was, built under a huge protective and a whole lot of laws that governed over and under and within that protective. Yeah, that was the difference with our world back in Te Aoko'o. Okay? So let's not get lost into that and start thinking, we're separate, we're one way, and we're not connected with the rest of the world. That's not true. We've always been connected with the rest of the world, just the way our tupuna lived and preserved life and looked up and protected quality life within our land. Some of those things that a lot of our people are picking up on. But to say that the Lord has never been a part of us is a lie. That is a lie. This land would never have been ours if the Lord was never a part of us. I mean, the Lord was a part of us long before the missionaries got here. The Lord was a part of our connection with this land long before, that we even got word of Naphtali and Joseph and all those people, all those ancestors, the Ihiperu, the Hebrew people that we are part of, and our connections with them. Why? Because they're all tuakana to us. So at some point on our journeys through the Middle East, through China, through Japan, through India, and into Savai, you can't tell me we never came into connection with that atia. Even though we held on to the pantheon staunchly, we held on to the pantheon right through. You can't tell me that the Lord has never been there with us, because, yeah, the Lord has helped to bring us to the stage that, of where we're at now. And the Lord, this is the God of our tuakana. He's so powerful in the world today, So very powerful in the world today. Okay, and I'm just speaking from a Christian point of view. As a Christian, I don't believe that the Lord and his word has been a part of the colonization of our people. Yes, the Crown, the New Zealand Crown, chose to utilize it in that way, but it wasn't the word of the Lord or the Lord himself that was the actual colonizer. Let's keep those two things apart. And look at the taha wairua of what I'm saying separately from all of that. Because it was the Crown that did all that. It wasn't the Lord. And it mostly wasn't the missionaries. Mostly they weren't trying to. But a lot of those elements came into it. Why? Because they couldn't stop it. Why? Because the Crown held power over everybody over those times. So we've sadly had to wear a lot of those consequences. And as I come to you, Lord, just to wrap this corridor up, Lord, I'm just looking at a lot of our journey with the Lord, with you, Lord, and how a lot of our people don't actually see where you come into it. Well, because we're ihiperu, we're descended from them, we obviously have had you in our lives long ago, long before we even got to Savai. See? When we got into Pacifica, we were people of Naphtali. We were people of Joseph. And then from Pacifica to here, we were still those people. And we're connected with the Jews. And we're still ihiperu. And our ihiperu lines connect us with Africa. So Lord, help our people to know that. Help them to understand and let go of this colonized thinking that we were one day wonders, because we never ever were. We never ever were one day wonders. We were full of diversities, full of intelligence, full of open-mindedness. We had our own deal. We had our own culture. We had our own spirituality, but we weren't closed off to the world. We weren't that arrogant. In fact, we're probably more so arrogant today, Lord. So help us to learn your word. Help us to be more open, Lord. Father, help us to open our hearts to you and realize that there was no way that any stage of our journey could have stopped you from being a part of our spiritual journeys right through. And when you look through all of the colonization period that we've just been through and that we're still stuck in, Lord, who's helping us out through that? You. Help our people to understand that you're for us. And if you be for us, Lord, who can be against us now? Who can challenge us now? Who can stop us? We're starting to come back to power in our own land. We are, and it's already started, Lord. We're starting to ask for the crown, the New Zealand crown, to be stood down. Effect that, Lord. Make it happen. Bring back our landlordship. Bring back everything that we're blessed to be in this land and everything that you wanted us to be. But help us, Lord, not to focus on our pride and our mana too much. Those are some of the mistakes of old, where people tribes tried to have more mana than anybody else. Help us to focus more on the quality life we can provide for each other and for others, for what we can do for others, for what we can do for ourselves even. Help us to take less pride in ourselves and to lean on you. Help us, Lord, to take your understandings forward. Because within you there's, we're always looking for a way towards success. You are the only success in this world, Lord. Father, help our people to understand that. Help our people to learn that. Help our tribes, help our iwi, help all our communities. And I pray for all our communities, all our races, all our people out there. And especially special prayers from me go out to, as I think about all the kids and the mokopuna out there, in their times of play, times of growth, times of learning. Help to strengthen them and help to, hopefully, that your good way, our Lord, will maybe influence them in some way in their days and their times, and maybe through the night as you protect them and you strengthen them up for their new day tomorrow. That, more and more growth and advancement for them and strengthening for them can be possible. Father, Lord, I pray in the faithful name of the Lord Jesus. Amen. Ka piti hona ka tātai hono ka rātau mātanu tērā rātau. Ka mutu atu ki puta atu kitua ki te ārai o te mate. No reira nā hoki rātau, ka riro noa ake atu. Ki roto ki te wāhi ka whakatau i rati atu ai, anuai kia rātau. Ka piti hono ka tātai hono, ko tātou mātanu anō tēnei tātou, ko te kānohi ora. Koa, kai te mihi atu, kai te mihi atu, kai te mihi atu. Tēnā rā tātou, tēnā rā tātou. Mauri ora, ka huri.